Native American village, many of its inhabitants would inexplicably collapse and die. The natives believed the English could kill from a distance by shooting invisible bullets, and they were not too far off. While unknown at the time, the English were carrying deadly pathogens to which the natives lacked immunity, and thus an epidemic was unwittingly unleashed upon the indigenous population. The two leaders back on Roanoke, Colonial Governor Rolph Lane and Indian chieftain Wingina, eventually grew so suspicious of one another that cohabitation was no longer possible. Wingina decided to remove his people from the island and retreated to a larger village on the mainland. Meanwhile, Lane came to believe that Wingina had formed an alliance with other tribes and that they were plotting to launch an attack against the colony. Whether he was paranoid or not, Lane decided to take preemptive action. On the 1st of June 1586, Lane and his men made their way to the mainland village and massacred its people. One of the Englishmen chased after and decapitated Wingina, and his head was later impaled outside the fort of the colony. A week later, a large English fleet commanded by the renowned sea captain Sir Francis Drake dropped by the Outer Banks on its way back to England. Given the lack of food and violent clashes with the natives, it was decided to abandon the colony. The colonists were hastily evacuated off the island, and then after 9 long months, they all returned home. All except 3 who were not located in time for the evacuation, and so the fleet left them behind. They were never heard from again. If the scouting expedition of 1584 had been a resounding success, the colony of 1585 was a categorical failure. Relations with the Native Americans had completely fallen apart, the severe lack of food had made life miserable, and they had failed to track down rumored sources of gold and copper, which could have made the venture worthwhile. In spite of all this, at least one man was eager to return. His name was John White. White was a painter and artist by trade, and many of the maps and sketches that you've seen so far were either drawn by him or based on his work. Somewhat ironically, however, there are no surviving portraits of White himself. White's participation in these earlier voyages is slightly ambiguous. He may have been part of the scouting expedition in 1584, but he was definitely part of the voyage in 85. What is a bit unclear is whether he stayed behind at the colony or returned to England with the outbound fleet. For instance, White's name is not included in a surviving list of all the colonists. But some historians believe this is an oversight and that he was in fact part of the colony. In either case, Sir Walter Raleigh was eventually persuaded by White and others to attempt a second venture. Unlike the first colony, which had been more akin to a military outpost, the second would include women and children, including White's pregnant daughter, Eleanor Eyre. After a long struggle to secure the necessary funding, a fleet of 3 ships commanded by White, who would also serve as the governor of the colony, departed England in late spring of 1587.
We have a billion FPSs, but there's only one Siege. Siege caters to pretty much every single kind of FPS player. Whether you come from Overwatch, Battlefield, Counter-Strike, Valorant, there's gonna be different elements for you that you'll recognize from your favorite game that'll be in Siege itself.
There's so many unique characters, so many unique guns, and so many unique gadgets.
As someone who loves to try new video games all the time, this is the only game that has kept my heart, and I keep going back to it.
Rainbow Six Siege X. Get free access now.
Your perfect wedding begins at Vistaprint. With gorgeous invites starting at under $1, and designs that match your theme, which we can also print on napkins, signs, and more for your big day. Take 50% off wedding stationery at Vistaprint.com with code WEDDING50.
The misfortune of the first colony did not end with its evacuation in 1586. Only days later, a ship filled with provisions sent by Sir Walter Raleigh arrived at the Outer Banks. The crew spent some time searching for the colonists, but when they found no sign of them, including the 3 men that had been left behind, they returned home. The same thing happened 2 weeks later when an English-bound fleet loaded with supplies and reinforcements also found the colony.